Hi, my name is Ben Sutter III, and I'm founder and owner of BS3 Radio. I've been podcasting for 5 years, and with BS3 Radio, it has grown to over 46,000 listens and downloads. I've helped hundreds of people to start a podcast by giving them the knowledge, tools, and confidence to be successful. Now I'm here to help you do the same with BS3 Coaching. So let's build a successful podcast. I will be your podcast coach. We'll be able to work one-on-one. I won't be giving you a booklet and just telling you to look over it, but we'll be working one-on-one, side by side, to either help build up a successful podcast or to take your podcast to the next level. So click the link above or below to check out the pricing. I look forward to working with you, and God bless. All right. Welcome to Reaction Monday. We're doing a movie review again today. 40 Years a Prisoner. Let's bring in A-Trap. What's going on? I thought you might have forgot.
What's good, man? How you doing?
So
How are you?
we got the brothers back together again to do another movie review. Suggestion from A-Trap, 40 Years a Prisoner. We will get into that, but a little introduction. Wilks, thank you for coming on with the cardigan tonight.
Oh, thank you. I had to pull out the Mr. Rogers with us.
Dawkins.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I started to put on a shirt and tie based on the little advertisement, pre-show advertisement you did. They had my schoolboy picture up there.
The gym teacher.
The coach in every picture.
Right, exactly. And A-Trap, thank you for coming on. Thank you for the suggestion, too.
Oh, man, no problem, man. I'm glad you guys checked it out. I'm glad it was fruitful.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was big.
Yeah, I mean, it was. So a little bit of background. The name of the movie is 40 Years a Prisoner, and it begins with the movement. And I thought MOVE was an acronym, but actually it's not. It actually originated as the Christian Movement for Life, and started by John Africa. Now, that wasn't his name originally. His original name was Vincent Lapart, and this is out of Philadelphia. So, A-Trap, I'll go to you first. This was something that you suggested, and give us, your thoughts on it initially, and why did you think it would be a good movie for us to review?
Let's start off first. I'm a bit of a radical. I've been radicalized since birth. Both my parents were part of the Black Panther Party of self-defense. My father actually lost his life in the streets of Chicago due to the movie, right? So these are the kind of things that have always intrigued me. These are the kinds of things that have always caught my attention. So when I saw this, I had heard about it already, and I think it's something that everybody from our community should watch, simply because when you're looking at these kinds of things, we get lulled into a sense of comfort with the election of our brother Barack Obama, our sister Vice President Harris. I want to say her name wrong. It's either Kamala or Kamala.
It's Kamala. Yeah.
Kamala.
They wanted to be Kamala, though. They
try every possible thing.
Right. but and our sister Mayor Bottoms and all other official people in official positions. But as you watch this documentary, you see that the problems that they were having 40 years ago, and mind you, I was 9 when that happened. I was turning 9 when that happened. I'm 50 now. We faced the exact same situation. I mean, my dad it was a misunderstanding. And next thing you know, he get hit in the head at a peace rally.
Oh
man.
And this is 4 months before what actually happened. September 69, he died. The same day King died, but 2 years later, April 4th, 1970. I was born in August. So I don't want people to go around thinking, oh man, things are so much better. We have better opportunities, and at the end of the day, we are right where we were 40, 60, 80 years ago. So I feel that we need to watch these kinds of things to remind us, we started off in California and we've made it to New Mexico, which is an awesome amount of space to pick up. But if you're trying to get to the Atlantic Ocean or back to the continent, you haven't made a lot of progress, even though you have traveled across Arizona, Nevada, and now you're in New Mexico. We still got a long way to go. And just because you've made progress does not mean the trip is over, that we're not facing the same adversarial entities. So we need to watch these as a point of interest. And I want to ask you guys a question at the very end of the show. This brother named Lamont King, he's a very cool guy. He's a comedian. And he presented this argument. And I'm going to ask it at the end of the show. I just want to bring that to you guys.
Okay.
All
right. As we're going along, let's give some shout outs here. Vernon Ricks, a.k.a. Chief Rocker. Thank you for coming through. Mandeleon, Tracy Porter, a.k.a. DJ Chuck. We got Justin Caraway. That's part of the Ivan Dawkins.
Ken Folk.
Thank you for coming through. Bonita Whitfield. Thank you for coming through. I like that photo too. Very Angela Davis-esque right there. Anissa Seals, thank you for coming through. We appreciate that. So, just starting off with this movie, I didn't really know what to expect. You read the script, you read the tagline, and you're like, okay, 40 years. And it was like truly 40 years that this guy that you can see on the image behind me was separated from his parents. And that's wild. And them being separated from themselves. But as we kind of do introductions, Wilks, what was your take, your initial thoughts on the movie?
Oh, man.
Or documentary, I should say.
Well, no, I got you. But so I started watching it last week immediately after we got off from one night in Miami. But it was, it was such an echo of a documentary because, fresh off of last year, George Floyd, what was happening. You look at this man, I believe Frank Rizzo, I believe that was his last name.
The mayor, yeah.
Yep.
The embodiment of pretty much Donald Trump. And you can't even really just say Donald Trump. The embodiment of something that has always existed in the United States. It was just something that was uncovered. He was against desegregation. He was against, of course, Black communities or anybody speaking up against his tactics. He felt like the police should have their foot on the necks of the Black community, pretty much. You didn't hear them speak about anybody else but the Black community. He just had this thing out for the Black community, like really pretty much today, systematically. But, it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm looking at this and I'm reading about this guy and I'm like, this is going on in Philadelphia in the late 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. And I'm like, this man has ran for mayor?
Yeah.
This man has ran for commissioner, police commissioner. I was like, are you kidding me? It's like,
I'm like, yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's what I was like. You gave this guy multiple roles. It wasn't like he was just a cop and he went up through the ranks. Right. He was mayor. He was this and that. And that just showed like where they were in that time, right. Where we are now.
Kept empowering him and putting him in high places and high points of power and just putting things in his hand that he could use and mobilize against the movement and these people. And I'm like, you blockading these people? I don't want to get too far out and step on people's points, but yeah, I was just like, man, this is an echo of what is still happening right now. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And just to add in, I watched this with my wife because we're big movie buffs, documentaries, and everything. And she was like, she just looked at me like, this is where we are now. Like we could think that this was 40 years ago, but this is honestly where we are now, dealing with some of the same things.
Right.
And in this movie, I had kind of all types of emotions, like crying, happiness, laughing, frustration, anger, like all of that was wrapped in
Belief, like
like disbelief. Like how do you like allow this to happen? But Dawkins, I'll go to you.
All right, yeah, I share some of the same sentiments that Ben and Wilks shared. Number one, I didn't expect it to be what it was. I figured it was, because there are several documentaries or little pieces out there about individuals being incarcerated, you know, for no reason, or a mistaken identity, or, you know, pre-DNA situations, whatever, you know. So I was expecting it to be something similar to that and focus on one individual. I did not expect it to be this big community thing that was going on. And obviously it kind of surprised me of how much it was a replica of what we're going through today, you know. And it became so difficult to watch that at the right at about the hour and 12-minute mark, I seriously considered I'm gonna take a break and watch this tomorrow or the next day or something like that, because I'm like, I got to go to work tomorrow. And I remember back when Roots came out, we didn't going to work wasn't a great idea, you know. So yeah, it became hard to watch, really, you know. And I think that was probably around that blockade that Will's kind of touched on, which we'll get into a little later.
Yeah, it was powerful. And at the beginning, A-Trap, you touched on this a couple of weeks ago, where he was talking about how he went to the prison. You know, his aunt took him there. That was his dad. And he was like, "My name's Michael. Do you know why your name is Michael?" He was like, "No, I don't know, because I'm your dad." And that to him, and that at the beginning was like, wow, like where is this going? And I thought, hey, maybe they got out like sooner. And no, it was called 40 years because they was in there. His parents was in there for 40 years. And the fact that like you're not able to be around your parent at all, besides visiting them in jail. And he was born. So the gentleman that's behind me, that's Michael Africa Jr. His dad was senior. So he was born in prison. And later on in the documentary, the mom talked about how she had him in prison and they kept him in there for as long as they could, but they knew eventually that he couldn't stay there because he was going to be, taken. So like just that, emotionally, I don't know how you, as a mom, how you can handle something like that. But throughout this, and HBO Max, shout out to HBO Max, man, they have a lot of good quality documentaries on there. Shout out to Miss Sonia. Thank you for coming through. Appreciate you. She says at work listening. I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Yes.
And so throughout this documentary, I felt like there were so many moments and nuggets in there of things that was said and things that was done that we, like we said, constantly we see now almost on an everyday basis. So they had a move house that was in Philadelphia, and they had it barricaded as far as it being blocked off from people being able to come directly in. And it was a place where people came and they learned, they talked about eating right. That was the thing that really kind of caught me. Like this was somewhat like a Black Panther type of movement, to where they were feeding them healthy things too. They were also helping to educate them, and it wasn't about violence. But at some point, when you continue to push someone to a point where they're trying to be peaceful, but you're trying to enforce something on them, that's where things start to get to a point of no return, where you cannot just sit back and say, oh, nothing's gonna happen. And I was kind of like what my wife was saying, which we both agreed, like, what did they do
right
to be in that situation? And so as we get kind of towards the beginning moments and it talked about move, I thought that part of it, I enjoyed learning. And I thought that was really educational, and it showed what went on in Philly. I grew up in California, so I didn't really know outside of California, outside of the Bay Area or the West Coast. I didn't really know what happened on other areas. So that to me was a very, I think, great part about the opening of it. A-Trap, I'll go to you. What was your thoughts on the kind of background on Move?
Well, Move, all they did was be proud and be not single-minded thinkers. They were individuals, and in America, it's not really it's radical to think on your own, and that's like if you go online, you look at like Jesus and the Messiah, Judas and the Messiah is coming out. If you just look up Fred Hampton, you'll see whereas Fred Hampton brings in the room the Latinos, the whites, in which they are known as the hillbillies, and the black folks. And he was like, and then I'm assuming he had Asian people in there too. And he ends the speech. It's like a 6-minute video. He was like, white power for white folks. And he called them hillbillies. He said, we got the hillbillies. He named the Latinos by a almost like a gang title. I don't want to call it a gang, community organization. That's what I would call it. He was like, all we looking for is white power for white people, yellow power for yellow people, red power for red people, and black power for black people. All power to the people. 6 months later, Fred is no longer here.
Yeah.
So anytime you do what they did on Robin Hood last week, you will be vilified and you will be put in a situation in which you will be removed from Earth.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the greatest men in the history of the Earth, our ancestor, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., preached nonviolence, and he was exterminated because he said, "Well, it's time for y'all to stop paying us." He stopped saying, "Let's come together. Let's come together." Okay, since y'all don't want to come together, cool. Can we get our money? Because he started talking about all these land grants that were given to non-blacks, all this education that was given to non-blacks. If you hold it. It's cool that you're talking about we should overcome, but when you start talking about money,
right,
we don't need you to. You know what? You believe in Jesus, we're gonna introduce you to him. You can get to meet him face to face. It's over. So that's all they did to move, like you said, brother. Eating well, eating raw vegetables. And if you doubt anything that they were saying, look at John Africa and Denise Africa. 40 years after getting out of prison, I think I look older than them.
Yeah. They looked amazing. I mean, and then also the way they care for animals. That too was like, wow. Like they cared about human life. They cared about life, period. It wasn't just about their own skin. Because also they had, I believe it was either they were Cuban or Hispanic, and they were talking throughout the documentary about it. So it's not that. So when people when you read about it and it says, "Oh, they were black militant," that's not true.
right.
I mean, yes, they were powerful. They wanted their people to be successful, but they also cared about anybody that really came in contact with them and wanted to learn and wanted to grow. So. Wilks, I'll go to you.
Yeah, so kind of back to what you were saying about it. As soon as you read about the movement or about the cause and the movement, they want to throw out words like radical and they want to throw out words like militant. So it's already trying to catch you or get you pulled into these stigmas that, oh well, I already got what I need to know. They're radical, they're militant. They wear their hair long, or they listen to different music, or they stay to themselves, or they're teaching something that we're not aware of. Like, why are you teaching different from what we're teaching? Well, there's a reason, because it's not in your books, so we'll never learn it. So unless we teach it to ourselves and pass it along, and like you mentioned earlier with the Black Panther Party, as soon as they started defending themselves, and they got to the point of standing up and pushing back, oh, they're violent, oh, they're radical. But that's not the case. You start beating me long enough, I'm gonna push back.
Right.
So what do you expect? So it's just one of those things where in this documentary, I mean, it was amazing. And I said this earlier, it's just like how it echoes things that are going on today. And when I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at Michael Africa Jr., and how he's just like, at one point he's in a room of just like paperwork. He's trying to get evidence and look through papers, and he was recording things. And there was one point in the documentary where they just demolished the house or the apartment complex. Like they just tore it down, like get rid of it. Like it never happened, and it's just one of those things where it's just like, if we don't stand for ourselves, I mean, who is going to stand for us? It's like, but I'm definitely not going to wait for you to stand for me. So it's like, I got to get going now. I got to get this out to the people. So it's just one of those things where it's a deep document and it's a lot to unpack. And there were moments where you're just like, we're still talking about police brutality? Really?
Yep.
But, you see stuff on social media. Forget about it. That happened. No, how can we forget about it? It's still happening. I'm not making this up.
Right.
I'm not putting out a script somewhere and reading over my lines. It's like this is really happening. Yeah. I'll be 40 next month or later this month, next week actually. I'll be 40 and this is still going on. Like this was before me and it's still happening. My kids got to grow up in this. It's just I don't know. I don't want to take all the spotlight.
No, you're all right. You're all right. This is what this is about. Us really having a conversation about the movie and also about real present day. Because the marching, if you look at the marching and the signs, if you would have just enhanced the color of that, it would have looked like today. Exactly. It would have been the same signs, the same expression, the same frustration, the same tears, and everything. And that's the part that's probably the most, I think the most shocking and hurtful. I mean, we know, and like one of the lawyers said, I'm not surprised that they ended up going to jail for that amount of time. I mean, I think he said, I'm not shocked, but I'm surprised or something, the wording that he said. So, I mean, it's real. But Dawkins, I'll go to you.
Yeah, what's the beauty of this is, and what I mean by this is just simply the show and that we're discussing it, right, is the fact that there's some real meat that comes out of it. You can eat if you're paying attention right here, right? It's some good information. So to kind of piggyback off what Wilks said, he said that he mentioned words like radical and militant, and H-Rap also did. And once people hear those words, that's all they need to hear. Well, here's a nugget for you. There are far too many people in society who are being told what to think instead of thinking on their own, right? And the powers that be understand this, which is why they know how to plant these little seeds in terms of terminology. Another seed they planted was cult. And a lot of folks, when they hear that, they out. They that's all I need to know. Okay, got it, they're cult, and most folks they never looked up the definition of what a cult is. And what it technically is. And in modern day English, a cult is just simply a social group that is defined by its unusual religious, spiritual, or philosophical beliefs, or by its common interest in a particular personality, object, or goal. And this movement was about empowering their people. Simple as that. Whether it be through nutrition or through education or through self-awareness, they just simply wanted to get back to nature. And that's the thing. Back then, Frank Rizzo and his minions, they were muddying the waters of the issue. Like Ben, you and Wifey said, what did they do? Well, see, think about it for a second. They muddied that so much to where now you confused as to, okay, what happened? How did they get from point A to point B? What did they do that was illegal? So we have to be careful because there's some sleight of hand going on.
Oh yeah,
that's real.
Definitely.
That's real. Let me give a couple more shout outs to Rhonda. Thank you for coming through and tuning in.
Help me, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda.
Thank you, Maurice, aka Big Mo. Thank you for coming through. I'm probably gonna say this name wrong, but I believe it's Nisha. Thank you for coming through. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Also, jump in if you watched it. If you have comments or thoughts on it, we will definitely put those up. Also, somebody called my name. Shout out to you as well. Hey, people create whatever they want when it comes to YouTube. So thank you. And really throughout it, I'm thinking, when is his parents going to come home? That's what I was thinking. Is this going to actually be shown in this? Or is it going to be one of those things at the end where they're like, and his parents came home, but we don't actually have any footage of that. But they did. They actually showed the footage, and man, the interaction. You're not being able to see your parents, and his mom came home first, so that was good to see, and then his dad came home. But let's kind of rewind back to the situation in front of the headquarters, and they were out there with the guns, and which was like, oh well, why are they out there with guns? They're protecting their property. They're protecting their kids. It was kids. It was families. It was everything in there. And the fact that they cut off the power in a on just in that house, like I don't think it was on the whole block. I think it was just that. I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could just cut off like something just in those two houses. I mean, because it was two, and they had a basement. They talked about that, but like just the level of evilness and savagery. Like when we say the word savage, we think, oh, that's just somebody that's like eating that raw meat or something like that, or But the to think of like, I don't think that much of these people to where I'm gonna starve them and find out a way to essentially have them come out of their house, or like just let them die, like whatever, it's their choice. That's basically what they were saying.
Yeah.
But the thing that they were doing is that they were very like Dawkins was saying, coming like back to the earth. So they had like a lot of things in place, and they were doing fresh food, fruits and vegetables, which a lot of that stuff you don't necessarily need to have electricity. So when I seen that, I'm thinking like, where I know this is coming to a head, but that part of it, and you see the people in the neighborhood, and they're like, why are they doing this? Like, and because that's the other part of the story they were trying to spin, is the people in the neighborhood are so like afraid, and they were interviewing people in the neighborhood that was like, we don't agree with this. Like, why would you say that we don't agree with something that's going on here, and all we see is what they're doing is trying to build up themselves and build up the people that are there. Mm-hmm. So A-Trap, I'll go to you first. Kind of the thoughts on that part of it, which then goes into the next part we'll get into.
Oh well, it's based, it's the United States history. You got white facing media creating what they want to create and push it out there, and most of the people who live in the United States of America just go for it. Whatever you say, that's what it is. 1492. People get over here from Spain or whatever country, from Europe, of European descent. They started, this is what you don't learn in United States history. White folks got over here, they started to starve to death and didn't know what to do. They literally had to start jailing each other because they turned to cannibalism. When the natives nursed them health, they turned on them and gave them smallpox. And historically, every chance you get popped. You stand up for what you believe in, you get destroyed. I hate you. You people need to get your own stuff, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. 100 years ago this year, 100 years ago, it'll be the 100-year anniversary and Memorial Day. You go to Rosewood, today's standard, that'd be $100 billion community. They destroy it. Liberty City, Florida, Peoria, Illinois. Believe it or not, man, people, we've been socialized to believe when you say, and you're from California, man, when you say the two words, Compton, California, you immediately think violence. But that was a thriving Black community. Watch, thriving Black community. The irony in it, think about this. 100 years ago, everything ran by train in the United States of America, right?
Yep.
One of the biggest train depots in America is in Compton and Watts. So if you're living there, you're living in the epicenter of the community right there, because we're not flying and things of that nature. And what do? Flooded with drugs. Every time we found ourselves in a situation where we like, okay, we got it right, and then something happened. So this is American history unfolding right in front of you. And what we, as Wilks and as Ivan said, what we have to do is continue to teach it. And if you don't teach it, it will continue to recycle itself just like anything else until you learn that lesson.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback off of what you said, that's the part that's so mind-boggling. Number one, you bring us here. We didn't ask to come here. We weren't like, we put me on there first. That's not what it was. You brought us over here. Then you said, work for free, and we could give you the scraps. And guess what? We flipped those scraps into something that people are still eating today and flipping on their own, or trying to reflip it back, if you know what I'm saying. And then once we leave and we got our own thriving thing, it's like, oh, we don't like what you have because it looks like it's better than what we have. well, you just said like go do your own thing, and we doing our own thing. So that's the part that just like you gotta be at a different type of level of a person to be able to do what they did in that situation on cutting off the power. But kind of what A-Trap was saying, it's like you can't win for losing, because if we do something that's thriving, you're gonna hate. But if we don't, you could be like, oh, well, that's what you get, and like, you know, figure it out or whatever. So it's a constant thing that we've seen time after time after time. But we'll move on to the next portion, because that part I think was, you know, obviously the meat of the documentary. But Dawkins, I'll go to you.
Yeah. Well, first I want to comment on Ben saying he didn't know how you could turn off the lights in one house in the neighborhood. That tells me, and listeners, y'all need to know this going forward, Ben ain't never been poor before, because I know exactly how they can turn off the lights on one house in the neighborhood. That's good tea for you. But to deny the basic human rights in the form of starvation was still happening in America at that time, or was happening in America at all, is amazing to me. You know, it's so ironic and funny to me that there's a certain segment of this population, current day and then, that believe so steadfastly in upholding the Constitution, especially when it comes to their right to bear arms or free speech or things that specifically benefit them. However, when it comes to the basic treatment of other people, the kind treatment, or should I say mistreatment of others, they turn the other cheek. They can't see now all of a sudden. You know, so that's, to me, what's so ironic about it, is the fact that, you know, you stand on these principles, and how could you let something like this stand? How can you let something like this go by? And I think Dr. King, who said it, is when folks who are on the middle of the road, it's not the radicals that we need to be concerned about. They're going to do what they do. But when folks in the middle watch it and just let it go down, that's where the real problem is.
Right. Yeah. Wilks?
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback off of that, it's one of those things where, you know, also, can we just put to bed this black on black crime business? Like, that's the first thing somebody want to run to deflect. It's like, we all know it's called proximity murders. I'm not going to drive all the way to a predominant Hispanic community and kill Hispanics. I like, so, you know, and then what are you doing in those communities that are black on black communities? Are you going to reach out? Are you going to help? Are you going to teach? But no, you want to sit here as a keyboard warrior and you want to tell me about black on black crime. Stop, because you're not even on topic.
Right.
I'm copywriting that. That's mine, y'all. Keyboard warrior. I'm copywriting it. If you that's on you.
Go right ahead. No, and then when I seen this documentary and I'm watching this, I'm just like, wow, like, what is going on right now? Because these people are just trying to live, but you literally are trying to label them animals. You block them off from getting food. Nobody can bring them water. They got babies in there. But then at one point you want to talk about, oh, well, we're not going to use tear gas because they got babies. We're going to flood the basement.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're not going to kill me with gas, but you're going to kill me with water.
Yeah,
either way you're going to kill me.
It's inhumane. Yeah. We're going to kill you. We're just going to be humane about it.
Right.
We're going to try to be nice.
Right. It's like, well, we'll kind of cut off a little bit, but we won't cut off the rest. You know, it's like one of those things where you want it this way, but then you want all of it that way. And then I see people, you know, even with what's been going on, you know, with the police brutality today, and in this documentary, they asked one lady, you know, like, how does she feel about it? And she was like, well, I think the media, and this also came up, they felt like the media was giving them too much playtime or airtime. So I'm thinking, so when is it okay? When it's not being viewed? Are you going to pay attention to it when it's not in the media? I mean, yeah, we know the media spin things, but there's also got to be a level of, look, we're just trying to get the truth out there to some people. You know, all of it can't be spun and be spun out of control. So this idea of, you know, trying to, you know, use smoke screen and, well, this is what they've been doing. Okay, but tell the rest of the story. Just don't say they've been off to themselves with guns and they look like they got a cult and they radical, they finna march, they finna move. No, that's not what's going on. That's not what any of this is about.
Yeah, what about the Second Amendment rights?
Yes,
that's their go-to line.
Right. That's only one-sided.
But you want to barricade me and parade me in front of people as if I'm in the wrong. And and like you mentioned earlier, like A-Strap was mentioned earlier, it's one of those things where as soon as you start talking about progressing and moving forward, they want to off you. They want to get rid of you. It's okay when you talking about little things, but now you're starting to talk about economics. You're going to talk about my finances. You're going to talk about moving into my neighborhood. Oh no. We can't have that.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like they want it this way, but then they want to try to present it another way. It's like, why are you trying to shut it down when you tell me to do things, to go do my own thing, but then when I'm doing it, hello, Tulsa, Oklahoma, you want to come in and you want to burn everything.
Burn it down.
Wipe it off the face of the map. I don't understand.
Yeah. When we had our own banks, our own doctors, our own everything, so we didn't have to come to you at all. But you drove past one day and was like, oh, well, it looks too good. So even though we have almost everything else.
Right.
It looks too good.
Teaching our own and growing our own.
It's a little too shiny for us.
Right. How about this? That you have to borrow from your bank. We're so successful in Tulsa. Your banks have to borrow money from our banks to lend money to you.
Right. Because you can't grow the crops you want to grow.
Yeah.
The land is going bad. So now you got to move different acreage. Because guess what? You can't grow nothing on that soil. It ain't working.
And then before that moment, they talked about the baby that was the lady was in the street with her baby, and she ended up getting pushed over by the cop, and then the baby ended up dying. And then they said, oh, well, it didn't happen. So what they did is they put the baby in a box or a crate or something, and it was there. So then so that they could see it, and they said, oh, well, it was an accident, or they got excuses for days, but it did happen. And we talk about life, like we need to talk about all life, not just certain life, not just life that looks a certain way, has a certain skin color. So that to me was that was kind of one of the tipping points. I mean, obviously there was multiple tipping points, but that was, one of them. And that was to a baby that couldn't defend itself. So that was, I think, a major part in it. Let me give a couple shout outs to my man Key C. Also, we got Black Swan. Thank you for coming through. We appreciate that. Justin Caraway says they want us dependent on them so they can control us. And it's true.
It's bottom line. Yeah.
It's true. Now, we get to the moment where they were in the house and basically, hold on, let me back up. They had a peace a peace treaty, if you will, for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And on the 31st day, we talked about Rizzo. He's like, okay, it's time for them all to move. And it was like, well, that wasn't the agreement. So to have that amount of time of peace, I'm sure Rizzo and everybody in that that had a position of power was just planning and plotting and figure out what they was going to do next. But also they were probably pissed off because they couldn't do anything.
Right.
But that was probably the only amount of peace that they had during that year, maybe. I mean, like, it's just, again, mind-boggling. But so it gets to the point where they basically are going to come in and raid the place and try to get everybody to come out. So they all go to the basement. Everybody in the move house and the headquarters, they go into the basement and they say, well, let's use water. I mean, we're not talking about like a little water hose. We're talking about the hoses that come from the fire hydrant, and they're going to basically flood them out. And then we kind of touched on that. Like, that is like, you're an animal, and we're going to force you out in whatever way that we feel like we need to do, even though they weren't doing anything. It's not like they were burning. They didn't burn houses next to them. They weren't selling drugs. That's what I was thinking. It's like, this is a drug bust. Like, you trying to get them to come out like as if they are selling $1 million of cocaine out of there. Yeah. And that wasn't it. And we talk about the right to bear arms, which they had guns in there. which you have to defend yourself, but it's not fair to defend yourself if you're a certain color, and that's we've been touching on that, but that portion of it, which there was a cop that got killed, and I want to get you guys' thoughts on this part of it. I don't think that there would have been a way that somebody could have shoot up through basically a crack like that big with water coming in there, with them like holding babies up and animals up and all of that, and somehow they managed to shoot someone that was across the street. So, Wilks, I'll go to you first on that.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that, because there was one point that I actually read. I was doing some more research on it, is that later on, I want to say just like 2015, this had came up again, because they said there were some witnesses that were saying that the police officer had looked like he had been shot by one of his own police officers. Now, right. So, but you want to use that to raid and to move in and blame, and there was a lot of finger pointing going on in this document when I saw it, when they were getting to that point. It was a lot of backpedaling, but they wanted to use that to raid the move house, and that was the reason. Oh, well, they shot him. They're cop killers. So we told y'all that they were radical. We told you they were militant, or they didn't listen or abide by rules, and that was everything. Just went south after that. I mean, there was one point where I saw in the documentary, the lady said she had her baby, and she was running. Because shots were being fired, and they were still shooting after somebody was saying ceasefire, and they just kept shooting into the house.
The commissioner, which was behind everybody, mind you, was like, "Hey, everyone, stop."
Yeah.
He was probably whispering, "Hey, everybody, stop."
Right.
And it's like they're all over here, and if you really wanted to like make a point, you would have dragged somebody or something. But yeah, and then the part that I thought was interesting was like, the media was filming all of this. Yeah. And I think during that time, obviously had to been unheard of, because that was what the judge was saying. This is the first time we've had, a crime on tape. Which, how closely did you really see that guy get shot? Like, if this is with enhanced video, enhanced everything, if we go now, fast forward to now, and I still couldn't tell like who shot the guy.
Right.
That's a life that's lost. I understand, but you're pointing the blame in the wrong direction. Right. So
yeah, they needed that outlet at that moment, to blame it on something. I mean, even in the video, they're showing him beating the man. I mean, kicking him and everything. I'm like, one of the guys gonna say he was. What did the word did he use? He said he was apprehended. I was like, yeah, he's apprehended, all right.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, he was moved out of the way, and it was like, so what do you mean? Well, let's just say he was moved. I'm like, you giving a sorry answer.
Like, stop. The man's being kicked.
Exactly. Beat.
Right.
And then they were like, I think it was either the commissioner, it was Rizzo or somebody that was saying, don't do it here. Like don't do it here in front of these cameras. Just go around the corner. And I think that was Chucky maybe, but he was basically saying that they were telling him that they were going to beat him, but they weren't going to beat him in that particular spot. Even though they were beating him all the way along, along the way. But Dawkins, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I'm going to back up just a little minute about the baby situation, because make no mistake about it, the baby getting killed was a major catalyst in this situation. Yeah. You tell me what mama, and especially what black mama, you can do what you want to do to me. But when you mess with my baby, that changed the entire game right there. So make no mistake about it, that baby getting killed was a catalyst, and obviously it was friendly fire, the cop getting killed. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever about that, which is one of the reasons why they bulldozed the house right away. Mm-hmm. And all the evidence, so you're not going to be able to do any ballistics tests. You're not going to be able to, it might not even have been a weapon in there that was the same caliber of the weapon. I mean, come on, I'm not even no policeman, and I can figure this out. I didn't watch enough Law and Order to tell you how to figure it out, It may not even been a gun the same caliber, a rifle the same caliber. Hell, one of the ladies even told you half their weapons in there was just for show. They didn't even work good. You couldn't even fire them. We just wanted to scare you a little bit to let you know we got weapons. And by the way, you got a right to bear arms. I got weapons in here. That you coming in here? I'm not just gonna let you, you know.
Right. Right.
So again, it's obvious, they weren't even, and what's funny about it is they weren't even trying to be secretive about what was going on. The guy that was getting beat, I think his name was Delbert Africa, the one they basically beat to death. And that led about a major statement. This one cat in there said, "You have beat my people to unconsciousness and continue to beat them back to consciousness." And
Right.
that statement right there, man, is so raw. It ain't even funny. You don't need to hear anything else. You done beat us so long, we went unconscious. You kept beating and we woke back up. That's how he was beating us.
Yeah.
And the gentleman, one of the police officers, I believe, or maybe he was a detective later on, but he even said he was surprised the man didn't end up in the morgue. I'm like, now you done beat the man within that much of his life that you were surprised that he didn't make it to the morgue?
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Yeah. What are you doing?
And then we go to the point where he said, "Well, I thought he fell on my gun." And then they looked at the tape and the gun was on his hip.
Video.
There is no bigger lie than that. There is no bigger lie. He's kicking him, and you can see his gun moving around like this.
Right.
And he said, "Oh," and then the guy that was, can't remember his name, but he was I think he's a prosecutor or something right now, but he was just saying that they shouldn't have been arrested at all. And I'm like,
right.
Why? Mm-hmm. They walked out with no weapons. Mind you, the climbing underneath through, coming through the underneath of the basement with no weapons, and you beat them, and you shot one of your own guys. Like if they really wanted to be completely honest about it, but they weren't. And so that point of it, I was just watching like, wow, like what exactly did they do for that to be the amount of force?
Right.
What were they doing that was so detrimental, besides their skin color, that's what you have to do. But A-Trap, I'll go to you.
Oh yeah, LWB, man. Living while black. That's all they did. They were living while they were black. When you're black, you need to be docile. When you're black, you need to fall in line. I mean, it's so many opportunities throughout the history of the United States of America that you see this happening. I mean, even in entertainment and movies, like around this very same time, Richard Pryor's doing Scared Straight with Gene Wilder. And he goes off and does Live on the Sunset Strip. And he started talking about visiting Arizona State Penitentiary. And he's like, yeah, man. And when I got there, I realized it was justice there. Just us. And it was like, when you look at this, man, like you said, Chucky Africa's crawling out of the thing. They clear. Well, my favorite part, which is the most morbid part of the entire situation, is Chucky Africa is crawling out from up under the building, hands up. This man literally said he had a clip in one hand, a gun in the other hand, and a bayonet in the other hand. I'm like, how many hands this man got? And then they go back to another situation, and they lie again, and then they show you what's happening. Oh no, we had to fight him because he attacked us, and then they show him on the ground, kicking him in the head. And it's, hey man, I think it was Ivan that said it. That is why they tell Ivan or was, I'm trying to remember who said it. That is why they tore down that building, because as I said last week, there's a house that used to stand 6 houses to my west, just 6 houses down the street, is where they did the exact same thing to Fred. And that house stood, and those people said, "Are we not gonna let what happened in Chicago happen to us?" Because what happened in Chicago is, Fred attacked us, and Fred is laying on the they didn't drug him out of his bed, and he bleeding to death right there on the floor. And then when the FBI come in and do an investigation, they realize that there's very little fire going out, and all the fire is going in. So they learned their lesson from 10 years before. We're not going no FBI investigation. Knock that house down.
And that was the day after, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They were like, hey, we got these people on the phone now. Like they just got a bulldozer from somewhere and was like, we're just gonna tear this thing down. Because the evidence added to nothing. There was nothing, especially with the amount of water that was in there. One of the women that were in there said she had her baby above her head. So like what exactly and how fast were you able to find these so-called weapons that you were just able to pull out of out of a swimming pool like it was nothing.
Weapons in a pristine condition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to. This is the part I'm going to get you guys' thoughts on. Is that when they said shots were being fired, where was it coming from? Because I don't even think it was coming from the basement. I mean, it was just like it wasn't even. It was like a split second of saying shots were fired, and all you heard was shots. I don't even think it was a gun battle. It was all. It was just all an onslaught.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I feel like, like you were saying, I think when that officer was shot, and I guess they felt like, oh, well, they're shooting at us, so let's shoot back at them. But it's like you said, there was no shots being returned from the house. It was just all even in the documentary, it was just rapid gunfire. Like, it never let up. It was just firing. Like, I'm like, what are y'all trying to do? Y'all trying to punch holes through the brick? I mean, y'all trying to just shred the house up. I mean, I don't know what's going on. And it was just one of those things where it was just like, okay, well, they hit one of our own. Let's fire back. It was just kind of crazy. I'm like, okay, but you're not being shot upon, but you're unloading all this firepower to do what? Like, but then you said, oh, they got babies in there, so you're firing blindly into the house. I mean, I don't know.
The gun would have had to been perched through that hole, and in that entire video, I seen 0 guns perched through the hole. If you wanted to really aim, you got to be a sharpshooter to go from there to across the street, and the guy was standing behind the pole. If I'm not mistaken, he was standing behind the wood. So you're like, you got to be a marksman.
Yeah,
under fire.
Yeah. Shout out to Mika Baldwin. Thank you for coming through. LWB. The comment that she put there, 1978 versus 2020. The scary thing is nothing has changed. The only difference is the quality of TV. High definition is better, not the quality of life. Sad. That's wow.
Yeah.
That's facts.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sheila Patterson. Thank you for coming through. I mean, so yeah, it didn't add up. Like that is, if anybody watches that, you will see, unless you're biased, it did not add up to what they got. And then you put 9 people in jail for the killing of one person, and you didn't know who did it. And then when we get to the trial, that's the part that was like, okay, if you want to add it up, like this was like number 15 on the list of we want all of them in jail no matter what. And we're not going to go to a jury. I haven't heard of that before. And then the judge was like, well, since they said that they are together, we'll just pull them all in there together. So you mean to tell me 9 people shot this one guy, and that was the reason why he died, and that's the result. If you're a judge, you're supposed to be a person that is supposed to be equal, obviously, someone that's going to make the best sound decision. And that was a horrible. That made absolutely no sense. If you just think logically that you put 9 people in jail for the killing of one cop, and they still didn't even know who did it.
No, there was even one point where they said that, oh, I guess we better prosecute these police officers because of the beating.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess.
Really? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll let you have that one. I guess. I mean, you think you should. They're literally beating him on national TV. It's being recorded. It's on, it's on video. But
yeah, and I want to give some respect to the media that was inside. If you guys remember that part, the guys that went into someone else's house, like, hey, can we come in here and shoot this? And from the angle that they were shooting at, you got a pretty clear view of him getting beat to death. And thank God he survived that. But that camera view showed a lot. But Dawkins, I'll go to you.
Yeah, what's funny to me, one of the things I noted is that when the shooting was going on, it reminded me of the movie Harlem Nights, where Arsenio, they were mad they killed his brother. You killed my brother, man. So they going to shoot up Sugar Ray Place or whatever. So they blasting them with these machine guns. And one of the guys, they were shooting one at a time. Pow! Pow! And the rest of them shooting hard. The folks that was in the movement, they shooting the one at a time. Pow!
Yeah.
pow, and they getting lit up with the machine guns and the submachine guns and all this going on. So that's one of the things that stood out to me as being comical, to say the least. But the judge did something that was unprecedented, at the time or today, by taking it out of the jury's hands. It hadn't even got to that point yet. And he's like, okay, I don't need to hear anymore. I'm ready to render my judgment. Well, wait a minute. This is a jury trial. You can't take it away from the jury unless you think there's been some corruption or some misrepresentation. It was nothing that had gone on that would justify you from pulling it from the jury. That's a major move, and as a last resort. And sometimes you even wait to see the verdict first. Let me see if they're competent enough to come up with a verdict that makes sense, And he didn't do any of that. He pulled the case, made his judgment, and said, well, I don't know who killed them, but they was all in there, so they all need to pay equally. So you don't talk about radical. I mean radical.
Yeah, and 30 years. I mean, they had 30 to 100 actually. And so to come up with that. That to me was shocking. It was saddening. It was all those kind of emotions like wrapped up in one. Like, what exactly did they do? And for the women too, because the women, any point in time in this entire thing, I don't remember seeing a woman with a gun at all. I remember seeing the guys on their post outside. Right. I remember seeing the women holding babies, and I remember seeing them being very vocal of things that were happening. But I don't remember seeing them with guns. So that you putting someone in jail that you just clumping everybody in as association.
It's one of the exact reasons why today there are some people that are screaming demilitarize the police, so they can get back to their true calling, which is to protect and serve. And they have too much arsenal to be a police force. And if they had that kind of arsenal in 1976, what you think they got now? Oh, man. And it's like you're not a military entity. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Just to chime in on that, what Mr. Dawkins was saying, there was something that happened here recently, I think in Austin, and something happened. I can't remember. I don't think it had something to do with like mental illness, or somebody had found out that they had just been diagnosed with something. But there was a gentleman that had shot, I believe, a doctor or a physician. And then he ended up turning the gun on himself. But my point is, when I'm looking at the picture, I'm looking again. I'm like, is that SWAT or is that the Navy SEALs? Because they got flipped down night vision. You got helmets on like in Iraq. You got bulletproof. I'm like, what am I looking at here? I thought I was looking at, I had to read the fine print because I was like, is this the police? Is this the SWAT team? I mean, they literally look like something out of Call of Duty or something. Like they finna parachute in and right into Afghanistan or something.
The amount of cops that they had there, I don't remember the number. I don't know if you guys remember the number.
Oh, it was like crazy, like 300 cops or 600 cops.
306.
Yeah.
On that one block. Now imagine the real crime that was going on, and I'm talking about Bernie Madoff type crime that was going on miles and miles away, and you focused on this one house right here.
Organized mafia crime.
Exactly. Like that you're involved in and that you're getting paid for. So, A-Trap, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I want to make a correction. They are doing what the police were designed to do. The police were people who herded slaves. They created the police to catch slaves and folks. That's what they were. Ideally, it is to serve and protect, but it's really to serve and protect the rich and their property. That's just what it is. And to demilitarize the police, it is a situation that needs to be done because the Army in the United States of America is 27 times as big as the number 2 Army. You have to do something with those guns that are 2 years old. What do? You give it to the police.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. In the gear. Yeah, all that. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You have to. What you gonna do? Just throw it up. We're gonna take this, dump it in the ocean. Nah, we're gonna dump it in the hood, and we gonna shoot all you blackies. Hey man, That's all I could really hear. We're gonna get you, darkies. And, you know what's really scary? Here's the super scary part. 3 years later, the city of Philadelphia dropped a bomb on itself in a black community. And I'm not saying, hey, they dropped a bomb. No, they actually dropped a bomb.
It was like 85, wasn't it?
Huh?
That was like 1985 where they had that bomb. Was that the bomb?
Yeah. They dropped a bomb. It was an uprising like when they killed a young brother this summer. Mm-hmm. Things got out of control, and then boom! 3 years later, man.
And that was when John Africa died, right?
Yeah, that's when John Africa died.
Yeah, because I wanted to look that up to see what happened to him, because I know they didn't touch on it. You know, what happened with the rest of his life.
Then you open up a whole other can of worms, man. I mean, just like Huey P. Newton mysteriously dies of drug.
Right. Come on.
I mean, Huey P. Newton had his issues, but
right.
I don't know Felix the Cat and all those dudes who were in Oakland at the time, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that's gonna kill in Oakland that'll kill anybody in the street from Oakland that's gonna kill Huey P. Newton.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn what's happening. Excuse my language. I don't care what's happening. You ain't killing. There's dudes in the street not killing Huey P. Newton.
Yeah. If I knew we could cuss, I'd have went a whole different route. Hey, Travis, you told me that. And I'd want some different clothes.
My bad. Hold up, man.
You're right. So now let's get to the positive side of it. Even though we talk about Michael Africa, his dad, Michael Africa Sr., and then his mom, what was his mom's name? Denise.
Yeah.
So they end up going into jail for something that they did not do, and they didn't realize that they were being booked for murder. Like they didn't realize until everything going on that they were being booked for murder. They ended up being in jail. They were married before they went into jail, and they didn't see each other for 40 years. That is wild in itself. And the moment that they finally got to see each other. But so Michael Africa was born in prison. Like I mentioned, he was born in prison. His mom and some friends, they were able to take care of him during that time. And then obviously I'm assuming he went into foster care or he stayed with his grandmother. But so they go through that large amount of time. And now we see Michael Africa Jr. trying to get his parents out, and he is trying to really do all that he can. Like Wilks, I think, mentioned, he basically had a ton of boxes and files and file drawers and everything that was there to trying to find ways. They were up for parole multiple times. I think it was the 7th or 8th time when they actually.
Yeah.
So, like you talk about. And one of the lawyers for MOVE was saying this is just the fraternity of the police, the fraternity of police and law enforcement and the judge in the system is trying to keep them in there for as long as possible. And then finally there was a new district attorney that came in, and he was helpful. He wrote a letter, and that's essentially how the two of them got out. And you think of the amount of work that you're putting in. And I think one of the most powerful moments was when Michael Africa Sr. was like, I wanted to come out and I wanted to fight, but I didn't want my son to be spending his entire life, trying to get me out. And I was like, wow, that part just had me in tears, because, you want the best for your kids, but when your kid is fighting so hard to get you out, it's almost like you gotta roll with it, because he's doing everything he can to get you out of there. So that was a powerful moment with them getting out. But just let's talk the 40 years. That's where the 40 years come from. For those of you that have not seen it yet, it's on HBO Max. You can watch it so you can get all the other details. But Wilks, man, I'll go to you first. That amount of time and just the passion and the work that Michael Africa put in and not giving up, because easily you could have just said, well, this is just what it's going to be. But before I go to you, I wanted to say it was interesting how you saying at first, it was like, man, when you get out, we could do this business venture together. And then I thought that was so powerful too. And then it was like, I'm going to take care of you. And then it was like, I'm going to get your burial plot. Like that was like, wow. Like we know our parents are going to die, but what if your parent never gets out of prison? Exactly. Or when he does get out of prison, he's so frail that he just has a small amount of time.
Yeah, just to kind of chime in what you were just saying there. He was at one moment, he was just elated, like, oh man, when my dad gets out, we're gonna do this, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna have a good time. The next thing you know, he's moving into, well, I'm getting married, I'm having kids. Your grandkids can't wait to see you, wait to see their granddad. Then the next thing you know, well, I got to make sure my dad's all right. Like you just said, just got to make sure he's okay. Hey, Dad, don't worry about us. We getting along. We doing good. Then the next thing you know, he talking about burial plots.
Yeah.
It's just like you had all this time that you wanted to, see you on the other side, see you on the outside. And it's funny how you just kind of like you're going through those stages of your parents' life, but in a different perspective. It's like I'm growing, you're growing on the inside, I'm growing on the outside, but yet you're aging on the inside. But now we're moving on without you because of this craziness that spun out of control, booked us for something we didn't do. I don't want my son to spend his life trying to fight to get me out. But on the same time, it's like one of those, your parents like, man, I want my parents out. I want my dad out. Like, he's not supposed to be here. Like, you really don't have the evidence to hold him, but you're holding him. The good quarter of the portion of my life, my existence on the planet, he's missing everything, and it's just one of those things where it's like, where was it? Matter of fact, the Central Park, it was one of the that stayed in there that entire time. And it was like, he just went to kind of,
be there for support.
He was just the innocent bystander, and they getting him. He's up there second guessing himself, and he was the last to get out. It's just one of those things where and for a while they couldn't even find him. Didn't even know he was in the system. So it's just one of those things where it's just mind-boggling how people, like, you look at these documentaries and you see these people that have aged and they had some part to do with it, and they're just so nonchalant, like, oh, well, that was just what the times were.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Like, you're not trying to advocate? You're not trying to fight for it?
I'm going home to my kids, but I don't care about yours.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Dawkins.
Yeah, one of the most powerful pieces, Michael Africa Jr., said they were asking him, man, it's been 38, 39, 40 years and you still doing this. Why? Why are you trying? Why are you reading these every day? That stack of paperwork that he had in those boxes and that evidence and stuff like that, he was combing through it daily. He said, I'm just trying to find that one sentence, that one piece of information that can help here. And they said, well, why are you going to this much trouble? And he goes, I'm just committed to them the same way they were committed to me. And he says, in fact, the way they were committed to me is how we got here in the first place. It was because of their commitment to me, because they were trying to build a better life for me and put me in a situation where I was eating healthier and my thought process was what it needed to be, and et cetera, et cetera. It's because of that commitment that I'm committed to them. And there's some folks out there that won't commit 38 minutes to you, let alone 38 or 40 years. So that was strong. And then he followed that up by saying, they're in a correctional facility, which is a contradiction in terms. He goes, because ain't nothing correct about it. It's an incorrectional facility. He goes, how many folks that doesn't come out of there and nothing been corrected? Michael Africa Jr., that dude there, you're talking about strong, to give up his life basically. And obviously you had to have the support of your wife and children to be able to do it, because it had to take up some time.
Right. True. Hey, Trap.
Yeah, man, it was a sad commentary, but one thing I took out of that entire exchange right there, when we talking about the whole movement, is nobody, and I mean, like, people getting out of they leaving incarceration, and one thing I really took from it was they were, I think Wilks said it, they wasn't even bitter. They went right back to the principles in which got them there. They was like, man, I just don't want this guy to be in jail anymore.
Right.
It was, you know what? I'm just glad to be out. Denise was like, "Hey, I'm out, but they're not."
Right.
And it just shows you what happens to the world if Move catches on. And I don't mean just in our community. If Move catches on in the Latino community, like if they had 2 Cuban people there, if it catches on in the native, the people they call the indigenous people, native people, if it catches on in our community, imagine a world in which the Move movement is status quo.
Oh yeah.
Entirely selfless. I'm not really tripping, and I've been locked up. I got jail for this nonsense. But what about my brothers and sisters who are still in there?
Right.
That speaks volumes to who
Right.
You're right.
Yeah, it's that method of reaching back. It's like, hey, I did my part. I did my time, or I'm out, but I got to reach another generation behind me or some other people behind me and pull them with me. They're in there. Let's not forget about them and leave them to the wayside. But that's definitely a mentality that, it can always be fruitful and helpful and uplifting.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think of the point of like, yeah, my sister's in there. So I'm happy to be out, but my sister's in there. My husband's still in there. My brothers are still in there. My family is still in there.
Yes.
And that's the part that I thought was very powerful and impactful, because they truly did go back and get them, because later on, I believe all of them were released. It was, I think 2019 or even 2020 was one of them, the last one that got released. So it goes like back to us as Black people, man. We have been abused and put down, but we find ways. Like, we truly are just creative. That's the way God has made us. Creative in that we find ways to flip things that are negative and turn it into a positive. Sometimes we may not even be trying. That's just who we are, because we've had to do it. It's not like we've had a choice, but we've had to do it. But in this documentary, you can see that amount of time in the moment that Michael and Denise, that they seen each other, like that embrace, man, just had me.
Oh yeah.
Like, wow. If you want to talk about powerful, that amount of time, and it was like they didn't miss a beat either. Now, they didn't show every day, but just when you seen them, it was like, man, I miss you. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, how are we gonna be able to stay here with our family? Like, we lost so much time, but we just gonna try to make the best of every day. But go ahead, H-Rap.
Hey, just to touch on what you just said, it is an African tradition. The oldest game in the world, I can't think of the name of it. It's an African game, and it, like in chess, the game is won when you defeat everybody, right? You defeat this African game. It is the oldest game in the world, and it's played with these pods. And you can't win unless, like, if we were playing, I can't win unless I leave a pod for you, Wilks, and Isaac. That's the only way I can win. And one of the military strategies of the Zulu nation is, we will not destroy you. We will beat you down to the point where you will have an escape route. We're not going to kill you. We don't consider the victory if your entire army is destroyed. We will beat you down to, okay, you started off with 5,000. Now y'all down to about 2,400. Y'all can escape over there because we really don't want to kill you. And that's that resilience that we're talking about. It's not about the destruction. It's about, we won and gold.
Right.
We don't destroy. And that transfers over to here.
Yeah, it's over. Right. We giving you an escape route.
Right.
So, man, it was a powerful documentary, because like I said, like Ivan said too, we didn't really know what to expect. We went off of H-Rap said to watch it, so we were like, let's do it, because I think it's important that we watch these type of documentaries. But then at the end of it, it's like, man, you just seen everything that they endured, and then to come out and to be smiling and to not be like, I hate the world, but to be like, let's figure out how to get our other brothers and sisters.
Yeah, when I first watched it, I went into it with like, oh, okay, so this brother right here, Michael Africa Jr. is going to be on this relentless mission, which he is, and he was on this relentless mission. But when it started breaking off into things that are echoing today, and when it started focusing on the police brutality and the barricading, and then the commissioner, then mayor, and then on from that, how he was just like relentless, just like it almost reminded me of just kind of like J. Edgar Hoover after the Black Panther Party. It was just like, and it's just on a smaller scale, I guess, because in that concentrated area. But it was just like, you don't like anybody that's trying to better themselves. But then the funny thing was, when I was reading about this Rizzo guy, before he died and had a heart attack, he calls himself, I guess, trying to make peace with the Black community and goes campaigning in the Black community. And I'm like, no, man, no. That's like, as soon as they vote you in or you trying to do enough to shuck and jive, you're going to turn on them again. So it's just like, how do you think they're going to move on from that? You trying to make peace like that? No, you need to verbally make peace, but you died of a heart attack, so it's whatever.
Peace.
Yeah.
And that's elections, period. All types. It's like, how can we best get your vote? Whatever we got to do, like whatever it is.
Right.
If you want this, if you want that, we will promise you. Like we've seen that for years, and obviously in these past 4 years, we in every avenue. I've paid more attention to politics at every level in this point of my life in these past 4 years than I ever have, and it's extremely important because that's when a lot of the change is being made. We just look at the president like he's the one that's going to be controlling everything, but that's not true. So we as everybody that's watching this, like voting is impactful on a every term thing, not just a every 4 years type of thing. And so I don't know if you guys watched the I guess that was the it wasn't a eulogy, it was epilogy. It was basically like a 30-minute thing after it. HBO Max had it down below. So I watched that part of it because I was like, I guess they're gonna go a little bit deeper. So they interviewed Michael Africa Sr. and Denise Africa, and it was really just allowing them to share like how they met, which they met before Move and before they went into Move. And then also Michael Africa was in the military. So then Erica was like, yeah, we talk about veterans. We talk about let's praise our veterans. And Dawkins, I want you to touch on that because I know you're a veteran. And like to be able to see that he was a veteran, but see where he ended up for that amount of time. I want you to touch on that.
Yeah. It's amazing. Just lately, the country and society is trying to get on this veterans bandwagon, and it ties back into politics, right? Because that's where it started coming from. The politicians or people who are looking to get elected or monetize the praising and taking care of our veterans. However, take it from me, a veteran who receives care from like the VA medical center and whatnot, it ain't reaching the ground floor. At this point, it's hyperbole. It's just talk at this point because it's not reaching. You want to talk. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to doctors, nurses, support staff at the VA medical center to say, I understand you see a certain type of person here frequently. Generally, that's the older veteran who can't communicate well exactly what's going on, don't have nobody here to take care of him or her to receive his treatment. Yeah. I'm not that dude. I'm not, me and you're going to have intelligent conversation, intelligent dialogue, and you're going to treat me with some respect out here, and so unfortunately it doesn't take place. And, they're going to treat you as a veteran or give you those rights and privileges as a veteran, as long as it's beneficial to the greater good, not necessarily beneficial to you as an individual, So that part stood out to me, and it and like I said, it's not translating, to be perfectly honest. It's a lot of hot air at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I know people, I used to work with a lot of people that were ex-military. They were older. They were going to the VA, and they would say, like, I need this surgery, but it's going to be 3-6 months out. Like, I need the surgery now, but the fact that I can't get it, the fact that I can't get it now, and I'm still having to work. I mean, like that had my, my heart broken for these people, because it's not. You put your life literally on the line that you could die at any moment.
Yes.
And you come back, and it's just like you're not treated with any any type of respect.
There's no dignity. Dignity is the word. They don't leave you with any, the way they treat you.
Oh yeah.
And so we correlate that to Michael Africa, and I don't think they said the amount of time that he spent in the military, but he spent time there, and then he came out, and then he was with Move, and then the one of the powerful things that he said was that I wasn't militant. I wasn't really one of those to run the controversy. I was one of those people that would sit back and would listen and would learn and stuff like that. So then he ended up there was something on schools that he went to, and he ended up getting arrested, or he ended up getting beaten and arrested for that. And he was just there to support. Like, again, like we talked about, the guy from the Central Park, like he was just there to support, and he ended up getting thrown into jail. So he was saying I was like forced, or not forced, but I went into this because there was injustice going on, and that's the reason why he got into Move, and then with his wife, and then they both end up going in for 40 years. So it was. If you guys didn't watch that, it's like a 30-minute like piece afterwards, and then I'm
gonna check it out. I missed it.
Yeah, and because I'm always one of those that I want to see the extras. I want to see give me the extra 30 minutes that I can get, or 15 minutes, or you got to interview with somebody or something. Yeah. And then he talked about him and his wife. How are we gonna live the rest of our lives? Like, we've lost so much, and then they end up having a ceremony with them getting married with families and friends, and so it was that part I thought was powerful. All right, so let's go to each one of you guys. What was your favorite moment in the documentary, or what was like kind of the highlight for you? And Dawkins, I'll go to you first.
All right, yeah, it's in a documentary like that, it's hard to come up with a favorite moment, right? You know, in fact, the next movie we review gonna have to be Home Alone 3 or something like this. This is messing with my emotions, man. We can't keep doing this. But one of the things that was cool with me, man, is that toward the end of the documentary, where they made it home, and he walking through the backyard with his mom and stuff like that, and you see they got a guard back there. And so basically the sentiments of the movement have translated to Michael Jr. And he is upholding those same sentiments and tenets that they operate under, so that was, for me, the coolest part of the situation as far as I was concerned, and I walked away, we've all stated in one way or the other that basically this is a reflection of society today. It's what's going on today. It's just another look at it. The difference is, and this was, kind of before Trump got in office, because they came out with it, but before Trump got in office, it made it okay, to say that you're a racist. We were in a state of have a nice day racism, which basically they smile in your face. Hey, how you doing? You're doing good, but not giving you the opportunities in the back. In fact, Diane Sawyer and NBC did a show on it, a story on it. And basically, they took two guys that had been friends, a white dude and a black dude. They grew up, in real life, they grew up together, went to the same high school together, went to the same college together. When they graduated college, they moved to the same neighborhood. And, they're all married with kids now, play on the same softball team everywhere. Where they took them, they said, let's go to Chicago for a week. And we want you to pretend like you're moving to Chicago for the first time. We want you to interview for a job. We want you to try to get a place to stay. We want you to go try to buy a car. And in every single scenario, the white dude got preferential treatment because they didn't know they was on hidden camera. When he went to the car lot, the car salesman went to him first. when he went to look for a job, they told him position filled and told the white guy something different. Like, okay, well, we're gonna take a serious look at you. We think this might be a good fit. When they went to the apartment complex, the apartment manager, leasing guy, gave the white dude the keys and said, "Yeah, man, go take a look. It's take your time, whatever, right? See if you like it." The black dude say, "I'm sorry, we just leased that property." So in every single situation, they got preferential treatment, and that's why they say it have a nice day racism, because he wasn't calling them. Those folks wasn't calling them no names. Yeah. They wasn't putting their hands on them. They were being cordial, but at the end of the day, they still were giving preferential treatment somewhere else, and they were shutting you out of what's supposed to be your rights.
Yeah.
So again, that's where we're at now. Have a nice day, racism. But the coolest piece of it is that all his little kids had the dreads, like mom and dad had. He got the garden situation, and I'm like, yeah, he's still doing it. He's still keeping the movement alive, and for no other reason but his own family.
Right. Exactly. All right, A-Trap.
To piggyback, I want to comment on what Ivan just said. Before I say, Chicago was the perfect place for that, because people assume that Chicago is this metropolitan,
progressive city.
Yeah. This is some of the most progressive racism you'll ever experience.
Wow.
More race. Hey man, forget me. Dr. King, the great Reverend Dr. King Jr., our ancestor, said he has never faced the racism that he faced in Chicago in his life.
Wow.
That's all you have to take. There you go. But my favorite part was what Ivan touched on at the very end, is you can see when you peer into that home, man, you got this. I'm assuming those other ladies who were crying with his sisters, Africa's, Denise and Michael's other kids, and the love that you saw in that house.
That's right, man.
They have natural. They're still eating of the earth. None of them were fat like me, overweight.
Like us,
fat like us, you would say.
Nobody overweight. They all look fit. They all. The thing that I took from this the most, all the Africans were extremely happy.
That's right.
That's what I took from this the most. Like, yeah, you took our parents, you incarcerated our like Dr. Not Dr. Claude Anderson, Dr. Greg Carr says aunts and uncles, because he says there's no word in Africa, traditional African language, for aunt and uncle. Those are just your parents. Like your aunt are your parents. Your uncles are your parents. So our aunts and our uncles but at the same time, we looked this racism, this discrimination, this imperial treatment in the face, stared it down, and it did not disturb us in any way.
Wow, I love it.
Yeah.
That's
I agree. Wilks.
It has to be pretty much what the gentleman just said. That scene when you're walking and you see that garden, and of course that garden to me, that's just a signature. That's just a sign of that growth and that knowledge that you pass on. It's one of those in the natural hair, and you see the love in the family. And it's like, I'm not going to allow your negativity to feed off of me and make me bitter. I decide to rise above that and focus on what the task is. It's just getting to the point of those last moments I may have with my parents, with my dad, my mom.
Yeah.
I want to move on from that, because that's all I wanted. That's all they wanted to do, was just live and teach. But since you want to impede that, you want to block that with blockades, you want to flood basements, you want to try to attack me in a sense of, oh, well, look at them. Look how they act. We told you that's how they act. We told you that's how they corrugate together. But I want to go forward. I want to move past that. I just want to see your loved ones on the outside, the ones you hold close. I just want to have my loved ones on the outside. I wanted them to see their grandkids and what I'm passing on, because even though they were on the inside, they were still teaching me. And I want to continue to teach what they were teaching me. and what I carried all these years. And I just felt like that not the last thing, but that area, just seeing that garden and that growth and passing that on and not forgetting where you came from and how you got there, because it's the story of how you got there is what helps you. I can't think of the gentleman's name, but and A-Trap may back me up on this, but if you don't know what went on behind you, you don't know what's going on in front of you right now.
Right.
So you've got to pay attention what happened behind you in order to know what you're in right now.
Dr. Henry Clark.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Henry Clark.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah. And for me, it was when Michael Africa Jr. got his mom. You know, we're all guys, and to have your mom's like hug, like in touch, and the fact, I mean, he was just like a kid, man. Like that to me was, I think, was my favorite moment. You know, his dad, obviously, when he embraced his dad, but your mom as a male, that is the person that you cherish, and that is the kind of how you model your wife or your significant other after, something that you know mirror of your mom. So that moment to me was so powerful. And then it was just like on to the next. It was like, what's my dad, my other family, and they grinded it out, man. There's no other way to say it. It would be easy for them to say, well, we're out, so let's just move on with our lives. But that to me,
the work wasn't done.
The work was not done. Yeah, true. So a huge shout out to Tommy Oliver. He is the director of this documentary, and just the time that was put in, it was done very well. I was truly impressed, and you can't. And me and my wife were saying, you can't necessarily say, this is a good documentary, you know, because it was so much struggle through it. It did have a good ending, but it was just wow. That's really all I could say. I didn't want to say it was good because there was so many things in that was wrong, just blatantly wrong. But it was definitely something that I'm glad, you know, that we all watched. So, A-Tribe, you said you had a question.
Okay. I'm going to preface the question by saying, please hear what Mr. Lamont King was saying. You know, hear it and instead of just listen to the question. Lamont King posed the question today on his show, live. It's called Live. Is it time to do away with Black History Month? Not the celebration of our community, but if we start teaching every day throughout the year, then Black History Month could be a month-long birthday celebration. And he was like, because just imagine if part of the curriculum at school was, and he had this other brother on there who said this, imagine if the part of the curriculum at school was to learn every month 10 people from our community that invented things. He says he does this with his kids every month. Name 10 things you couldn't live without in this house. And 8 of those 10 things were invented by Black people. He said you would actually be teaching white kids to study us. Like, we know who Patrick Henry is and all those people. So I was like, wow. When he said it, I was like, what? And then, because, you know, I'm a big Carter G. Woodson guy. And then once he got to explain that, and then the other brother entered, I was like, that might not be a bad idea. What do you guys think about it?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Now, I mean, when you talk about listening and hearing, before you even got to question how good, I was like, pastime. You know, see, when Black History Month came about, it was because there was absolutely nothing. There was no recognition. We needed to get something on the books, so to speak. You know, but now, you know, and again, this may be controversial, so I won't say the same thing A-Trap said. Hear me, don't listen to me. Hear me. But is it hindering the situation now by having it only be about, you know, it could be a hindrance right now, you know, and unfortunately with us, this kind of ties into the end of that movie. I think it was Wilks who said that they weren't bitter. He noted the fact that they were not bitter behind it. Bitterness can cost you so much. Imagine if they were bitter, they had lost these 40 years. Imagine if they were operating in bitterness, how much more time they would lose, even though they was on the outside.
Right.
You know, so for us, we got to be careful with regard to how we're getting at each other when the goal is the same. You know, so the goal is the same. That's motivation for me to hear you clearly and to figure out exactly where you're coming from, because I know what you want the end result to be. So yes, that Black History Month may very well be a hindrance to what we're really trying to accomplish, and that is recognition for everything that we have contributed to this society and to this world as a people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll step in and answer. Before I do that, Benita says my favorite part was when Mike Jr. was asked if his parents' incarceration was worth it. His response was, "It was necessary."
Wow, that's strong.
That was powerful too, because it was like, would I have wanted them to be in there? No, but it was necessary, and that was a powerful quote there. That definitely was awesome. And to answer your question, A-Trap, yes, I think it. I've been really thinking about that, because, like, why does there need to be a month to talk about us? We can talk about us every day. I can talk to my daughter about Black history every day. Like, it doesn't need to be a month.
Right.
And then, like, February today, we're seeing more commercials of like, yeah, let's celebrate Black people.
Right.
All of the other days of the year.
Right.
Like, don't just say, oh, because it's a month, like, let's use all of our energy. Use all of your energy when it's not just a month.
Right.
Like, so yeah, I'm honestly, I'm done with it. Yeah, I am, because at the end of the day, every single day is Black history. It's not just in the month of February. So yeah, I think it's time to find other ways. And like, I think what you said, A-Trap, is great. I'm gonna get my daughter on that tomorrow. Like, I mean,
Right.
like, find things that we have done, and it doesn't need to be in a month, because every single day, a Black person has been impacted or is impactful to someone else. So I don't want you to hold on to it for all the other months, and then you just want to throw it all into February, and then when the 28th day is over with, you take down everything and you move on with your lives like, oh, you got a month, deal with it. So yeah.
Instead of throwing all your effort and energy into Black History Month, throw your effort and energy to getting your knee off my neck, because I still can't breathe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that wasn't in February.
I
Wilks.
Ben, if you got sponsors, I apologize now. So my thing is,
I'm the sponsor. Don't worry.
BS3 Coaching, baby.
Here's the thing. And it's one of those moments. Yes, I'm gonna get to the Black History Month here in a moment. But just like with Martin Luther King Day, what I don't need you doing as a non-Black person is repeating and quoting Martin Luther King quotes to me in that moment. It's like, I need you to stop, because you weren't listening those other months, and you weren't listening those years ago when people were saying, hey, over here, hey, my house is on fire. Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a minute. No, it's on fire. Now that it's burned down, you want to come quote to me. I don't need you quoting to me. I've heard it. So with Black History Month, yes, it needs to be something that is removed, because we're always making history.
Ooh,
that's right.
Sweet.
It hasn't stopped.
Yeah, at the inauguration this year, history was made.
It hadn't stopped. And so it's one of those things where it needs to be taught, because non-Black people, you'll tell me about that rap song and wear that Wu-Tang shirt all day long. But you won't come over here and get to know the knowledge, because when it gets hard and it gets dark, oh, well, forget about that. We don't want to talk about that. Well, you need to, because in order to know who I am and what you're trying to represent or trying to take on, that's a part of me. And if you want, don't just get to choose parts of my culture that you want. And it's just like, oh, well, you keep that. We don't want that part.
Yeah.
No, you gotta take
Wilks, you just need to let it go, man.
No, man.
You just need to let that go. You need to get over that. You need to heal it, brother.
No, man, I can't do it, man. I can't do it.
Before you speak, man, let me piggyback off that. What Wilks just said. The fact that if I could piss off everybody in the chat room, everybody's gonna watch this tomorrow. The next day, Go into Target tomorrow and look at the Malcolm X T-shirts.
Right. You know it.
Malcolm X.
Right.
Wow.
Malcolm X finally made it to a shirt.
Yeah.
They got Malcolm X T-shirts in Target.
But remember, he's radical. He's militant.
Right.
They set out at midnight last night. The overnight crew. The overnight crew just put them on the rack.
I can't even turn on my
make that
moment in the corner. Yeah, I know.
One more thing. They go, the people that push back, this is what they do. They say, well, LBGT, because that's the go-to when you say black, then they go LBGT.
Right.
Guess what? A brother started that.
Wow.
And I didn't know that.
Wow. Drop the mic.
Yeah, I heard that.
Shout out to Mocha Bella. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. Also, Michael Baldwin. I believe Black history came about 1957. Don't quote me, but yes, we are hurting ourselves, not allowing our history taught in school to be infused with recognition of leaders. And I'm going to say this. Me and my wife have homeschooled my daughter for the past, I would say 3 or 4 years. And I know people think like, obviously a lot of people are doing it now. But if you imagine what you can instill in your kids if they are at home with you. Now, I know that's not everybody can do that. So I get that. And then maybe it's just us being more hands-on and sharing that history, because like she's learned so much during this time that she probably would not have gotten this in school. So like I don't think we can depend on the school, honestly. I think we probably are all in agreement with that. So it really is like, what can we use? And like A-Trap was saying, man, there's so many things that are being invented that our kids for sure don't realize. And maybe we even need to, get more educated on it and learn. So yeah, it's like, let's put all of our, like Dawkins was saying, let's start to put all of our energy into Black History Month, but all the other things that have happened,
right,
like throughout history, all the other things that have happened on every other day is like Wilks was saying, is just like, oh, you just got to get over it. We're just going to give you a little bit of energy now,
right,
and then eventually it'll die out. So every day is Black History. That's what I tell my daughter. Every day is Black History. It's not just February. And don't expect other people to say, oh, like it's February, so now we need to try to figure out ways to recognize you, even though I see you every day. Like, come on.
Yeah. Black history didn't stop with Eli Whitney and the Cotton Gin. Like, there's more to it. Come on, man. We got to get past that. That man been gone for years.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where
I believe. Oh, I think that I already read that. Did I already read that? We are forcing all the history into February. Celebrate us every month and recognize how we make history, not just Black history. Yeah.
I don't want to see when Don Cornelius back in the day quoting Black History Month in February, showing Sprite and Coke. I don't want to watching Soul Train now, man. It don't just stop right there. Move it. Like, keep going. I don't want it just in 1 month. You can't contain all of that in 1 month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are too big and too copied to just have 1 month. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. You don't get to pick and choose my culture and what you want to use and don't use.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the serious stuff, we're not gonna touch that. But I like that dance though. That's great.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna flip it, and I'm gonna make money off of it.
Right. You want us to win these championships out here, but you ain't trying to stand up for nothing though. Okay.
Yeah, it's an illustration of one of the problems we have within our own community for sure, and that is episodic diligence versus sustained focus. We are so responsive and reactionary, more accurately, to a specific event, and there's this episode of diligence and we own it, but there's no sustained focus, and again, I think Black History Month being just a month is just an illustration of that. For that month, we own it. We should be diligent about it. But then the focus goes away on March 1st.
Right. Yeah. We ready for St. Patrick's Day.
and it's the shortest. Yeah, and it's the shortest month at that.
Right.
Okay, that's a misnomer. That's a misnomer. Because remember, Dr. Woodson, Carter G. Woodson, as I put it in the chat room a few seconds ago, he started off as Black History. It just popped up then.
Yeah.
Started off as Negro History Week.
Yes.
And it was to celebrate Frederick Douglass. That's why it's in February.
Okay.
They didn't like that's a misnomer. But they gave us February. Now we took February because of Frederick Douglass.
Hey, Trap. Shh. We argue about that too much, man. Shh. You're taking away what I could argue for.
You should have just tried this. We gave you a month, okay? You want a week?
That's always been one of my pet peeves, though. Yeah. Oh man, they gave us the no.
Yeah, hold on, that's right.
It started, and then Negro History Week turned in '68 turned into Black History Month. So,
right on. There we go.
We appreciate that, man. Always dropping knowledge when you come on. And yesterday, I watched a ton of movies. Number one, I watched Harriet, and then I went into this one. So I was a little.
Oh man, you heavy in there, man.
I was a little angry. I was watching this. This is mad.
Like, movies in a minute, man. You go to come on, man.
Watch this pot and then go to bed. Yeah.
Follow it up.
You can't wash the dishes. Why this plate white?
Yeah. But man, awesome show again. Next week, I'm planning to do something different. We'll do a recap of the Super Bowl. Now I don't know if you guys want to do that. I like the commercials. We can talk about the commercials. We can talk about the game or whatever. A little the Denzel movie. Y'all seen that one yet?
The Little Things. Yes.
Little Things.
Ooh, that was. Yeah, we can do that next week.
Something lighter, man. Just as long as everybody, they killing everybody in that movie, so we good.
It's equal. It's equal.
So no Amistad next week, right?
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I'm already playing Mahalia Jackson around the house all week. I'm trying to overcome.
But that was a good movie. Definitely recommend watching that. Denzel, man, again at his finest, man.
Denzel.
Yeah. Denzel. They had to write them quotes, some lines were written just for him.
Yeah.
Because only he can deliver some of those knowledge bombs he was dropping.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to watch it now, man.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll do that then the week after. We'll do that on I guess it'd be the 15th.
Yeah.
Next week we'll do a
Super Bowl commercials. Yeah.
Alrighty.
All right. Well, appreciate you guys again, man. Great content, man. Each and every one of you guys.
Yeah, everybody that stuck with us, we appreciate it. And for future, non-blacks that watch this, our Caucasian brothers and sisters, we good. We ain't. We cool, we just talk about this movie, man. It's the problems we need to try. My best friends is white. I'm telling you.
We did out there, Wayne's brothers.
We'll have some fun next week with the Super Bowl. I got some interesting angles on these commercials and stuff too that I already been kind of made privy to. So it's ought to be fun.
Nice.
Nice. And then look, they even bought the Super Bowls Black History.
He gave you sports.
He gave you the biggest platform that you can get. Not happy with that
either. Wow.
And the first year was there, Lovey and Tony Dungy was the coach.
Wow.
Making that history, right, guys?
Black history.
Man, we appreciate each and every one of you guys that came through, commented, watched, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, click that bell. We'll be back next Monday. We got a pretty nice nucleus right here with the four of us. Yeah. So man, you guys have a good night.
All right.
And we'll be in touch.
Peace.
All right.
Peace.